Welcome to Freedom Lovin'. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 57. And in just a minute, I'm going to talk about an article titled, Why Freedom is the Worst Goal You Can Set for Yourself. So I'll have that just coming up in just a second, and just a couple things. So I changed up the intro. I got a request. Actually, I got a couple of people that requested to kind of ditch that, the intro that I've had for a while, which is the voice that comes on and introduces the show. And I like that guy's intro, but it was a little bit long, and I also wanted to kind of mix things up and use some of the music that I like, and just shorten it up. But I may go back to something similar to that, but I think the intro is like 30 seconds long, and I think people that listen regularly to the show might get a little bit annoyed, or they're just going to fast forward through that. So, but if you have any opinion on that, I'd love to hear from you as well. And also, if you have anything to say about the show as far as ratings and reviews, I'd love to hear from you on iTunes. So if you can go in iTunes and give us a review as well, that would be awesome. I always say iTunes, and I know the podcast is also on other places. So Stitcher is another one. So if you're listening on Stitcher, I think you can review it there as well. So anything would help, and would again love to hear from you. Kevin at freedomlovin.com. And what else is happening? It's beautiful in San Diego. I can't say enough about it. It's just incredibly awesome. And I'm loving getting up in the morning and going for a walk because the weather's perfect. And there's a lot of interesting characters downtown in the morning. And so that is going well. I just bought a ticket to Panama, so I have no idea what I'm going to do there. I was really itching to go do something in the winter, and I'm not really a New Year's Eve person, but I thought it would be great to be down somewhere in South America or Central America around New Year's Eve time, because that's kind of like the coldest time of the year, and there's nothing really I need to do here in San Diego. So bought a one-way ticket to Panama City, and I mentioned on the last podcast that I would be doing that, but I actually pulled the trigger, and I am so far flying solo to Panama City on December 29th, and I don't know how long I'll be there, but I'm looking at return tickets right now, and it's like maybe about 2 weeks later. So my plan is to go to Panama City for a few days, check out the city, and go maybe see the canal, and then head up to the beach. I don't even know where to go. It's like Bocas del Toro is supposed to be awesome, and I don't know. I just want to go and get a place near the beach and do some work and chill out there for a little bit. So that's coming up, and then before that I have Colombia in just 2 weeks, actually a week and a half. It's coming up really fast. I'll be leaving on the 8th, and hopefully I'll do a show from Colombia, and hopefully have some guests on that will be interesting and informative. So that's about it for anything introductory. And so I read this article about a week ago. I think I saw it on Facebook or something, and it caught my eye. It's called Why Freedom is the Worst Goal You Can Set for Yourself. So that's goes against my whole philosophy here. The article's pretty long, so I'm going to read part of it. Actually, I'm going to read a lot of it, but starting from the section where, the blog is petershallard.com. It's Peter, SHALLARD.com. And where it starts getting really interesting is, so he defines freedom as freedom is the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. So it's like something, it's an away from instead of a towards. So that makes a lot of sense. Like, you don't want to be shooting for being anti something. You want to be going towards something. So then he says freedom isn't real. It's just something that it's not. So it's like and he says chasing freedom is like looking for the end of a rainbow. It's an optical illusion, and there's nothing really there. You already have it, and if you don't, the only thing really constraining you is your own thinking. And definitely agree with that to a point. I think that we are mostly free as free as we want to be. Of course, there are things that get in our way for freedom, but like the Harry Brown mantra goes, how I found freedom in an unfree world, you can build freedom in your life around, despite all the things that you may think are preventing you from being free. So it's amazing when you really think about all these aspects of life where you think you're not free, and you can actually be a lot more free. So the section that I want to read is the title, or the subsection is Freedom is not a positive form of motivation. When most folks think of freedom, they see jets and tropical beaches. They see sleeping in on Monday and never having to wear a tie. Freedom means not showing up at an office, not wearing business casual, not having to answer to anyone but yourself. Did you spot the psychological flaw in this goal yet? We're all very clear on what freedom isn't. Defining the thing itself, though, is tricky. Look up the definition and you'll find some variation of the following. Freedom is the state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. Turns out every entrepreneur's favorite value is an away from, not a towards. Having freedom means not being constrained in the same way that having money means not being broke. In fact, you could even argue that while some people are pulled towards money or wealth, it's basically impossible to be pulled towards freedom in such a positive way. What is a positive expression of freedom? It's impossible to define without listing the things it isn't. We can only understand freedom by experiencing the absence of it. It's unreasonably abstract. You can neither purchase it nor put it in a wheelbarrow. How do you even know when you have it? The crazy thing is that, in the traditional sense, no one reading this blog has ever really experienced a lack of freedom. You might have had to answer to a boss for a while, but any corporate employee with $100 in their pocket is literally experiencing freedom when they wake up on Saturday morning. This may all sound like semantics, but it's worth sweating the details when we're discussing the single most prioritized objective for the 21st century entrepreneurs. We've all been chasing something that we already had, and that's a big problem. Freedom is binary. You have it or you don't. You can't chase more of it. We're all freedom lottery winners setting the goal of getting out of debt. It doesn't compute, so no wonder you're not super fired up on Monday morning. If my client work over the years has taught me anything, it's that the happiest and most successful entrepreneurs are dedicated to analog, fractal, and complex outcomes. They make business into art and show up every day to take leadership, wealth, design, or something else one step closer to the archetype of quality. It can never be perfect or finished, but like trying to draw a perfect circle, you can get so damn close that striving towards one step of mastery becomes the ultimate practice. Freedom isn't like that. There's no measurement of freedom. It's debatable whether the guy who owns a jet has more freedom when compared to the 22-year-old backpacker who's lived in hostels for 18 months. I've had both as clients, and I know which was happier. Freedom isn't real. Chasing freedom is like looking for the end of a rainbow. It's an optical illusion. There's nothing really there. You already have it, and if you don't, the only thing constraining you is your own thinking. If you want to surf all day, fly around in private jets, or travel for a year, then make those things your goals. None of them are freedom because, incoming epiphany alert, they all constrain you in some way while freeing you in others. You have freedom already. You're not a slave. Goals are goals, and jets are objects. If you define freedom as never having to do anything for anyone and completely playing by your own rules, you were essentially a hobo. No business owner is totally free in that sense. If I define my clients as putting constraints on my time, damn them, or my staff at commit action as unreasonably constraining me with their need for my leadership, screw them all, then my functional definition of freedom is going to ruin my life, and a lot of other people's if I choose to pursue it. Seeking to avoid all constraints is infantile. Constraints help you grow. They inspire creativity like Twitter and Hikes. Making yourself write 500 words every morning isn't very freedom-y, but it will make you happier and your life better. Ditto working out. Raising capital for your startup is the least freedom-y thing you could ever do, but it gives you a shot at making a difference and joining the Billionaires Club. Worth it if you have a great idea and a track record of executing. Being free, never having to do anything for anybody, is probably going to result in you not being able to do anything for anybody. Better to throw it out as an objective altogether. The only caveat is that freedom is something we should be providing, with extreme prejudice, to anyone who is enslaved. For us that already have it, almost everyone, let's strive towards doing something with it. Zero consumer debt, the business management structure and resources to take vacations of your own choosing. Being able to cover your personal overhead for a year or so without additional income. Those are good goals to have. I think they'll give you the feeling you're looking for. None of them are freedom, but that's okay. Beyond that, aim for the tangible specifics that build a secure, varied, respected, connected, and love-filled life. If you're hungry for more, seek to do something huge. Create quality in your life in the way you lead or in a thing you build. Yeah, and I think that's great stuff by Peter Shallard, even though I'm all about freedom and I love freedom and I'm freedom11.com. But I think that he's making a really good point of this going away from versus towards. And I think that can be applied to many areas of life, and including business and your goals in general. And I've always had freedom as a top goal. And I think that it's okay to have that, because, I mean, that's where I disagree with him a little bit, because you can start to look at the world differently. Like, it sounds like this guy's doing a lot of client work, which is he's doing, providing services for businesses or something like that. And to me, that is less free than building up a business that can run on its own without you actually having to be there. That's the big difference, and that goes back to the rich dad, poor dad philosophy of kind of having your own business versus being self-employed. So when I was self-employed, I felt much less free than when I was an employee, because I felt like every second of the day I had to be doing something work related, and on the weekends too. I didn't feel like I could just take the weekends off, even though I did, and then I felt guilty about it. But when I was an employee, at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever I left work, I was done. I didn't think about work. I was completely doing something totally different, and the weekends were mine. I didn't even consider thinking about work on the weekends. So that's the difference. And then when you get to the level of having a business, and even if you make much less money, but you have a business that's paying you while you're not there, some of the time at least, then you are creating more freedom. So it is something that you can sort of add into your life, but to make it your goal is a tough thing, because where do you start? You start by becoming that backpacker that's traveling the world and has no possessions, no responsibilities, nothing, and you're living in hostels and you're staying in places that are like $5 and things like that. I mean, that is a level of freedom. That I definitely would say that there are those kind of two levels. There's that you're scraping by, but you're doing what you want. You're traveling the world, and you're barely getting by, but you are getting by, and so that is a level of freedom. But what is it that you're choosing? Are you actually choosing this? If someone all of a sudden gave that 23-year-old backpacker $1 million, would they still just scrape by, just live in hostels out of a backpack, or would they upgrade a little bit? So that's the thing: is this really what you want, or is it something that you're just doing because you don't have the resources? So you're actually sacrificing some freedom. So it's a great topic. It's a complex topic. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the whole idea of war. There was a quote by Mother Teresa. She was a big anti-war advocate, I think, in the Vietnam War. And she said that she would never attend an anti-war rally because she's not anti-war. And to be anti something only brings more of it. So she said as soon as they hold a pro-peace rally, she'll attend. But being against something doesn't really work, and that's totally true. I mean, you look throughout the ages, and anti-war movements haven't done much. I mean, there's a debate about the Vietnam War and what actually ended it, and some people will claim that it was all the protests that were going on and thousands of people protesting all over the country, but those are going on for 8 years. So you think if they were effective, that would have worked a long time before. And then you look at the war itself and what happened, and the money was running out. The Americans were getting their butts kicked, and there just wasn't much of a choice but to leave at that point. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot there, and it doesn't really matter the details, but that's the idea, is that to be against something is not really going to bring you more happiness or more freedom. If you are against the government and you just want to rail against the government constantly, that's not going to bring you more freedom. No matter how many rallies or protests you attend, or meetings you attend, petitions you sign, whatever it is, that's never going to bring you more freedom. So in that case, that's why I love this article and this idea of building the thing first. If you have time later, after you've made your millions of dollars, then you can go back and go, okay, how can I change things? How can I make things more free for everybody? And but I think right now you just have to deal with what you have. And I guess one little bone of contention is that he was saying that almost everybody is already free. It's kind of tough to say that, because you could even say, most Americans are free, but do they know that? Are they born, you're born with all the rhetoric about freedom and how we're the freest country in the world and all that, but a lot of people don't actually live that. They live in a way that's very constrained, and most Americans don't have a passport. They don't travel. Maybe they don't want to, but a lot of times it's just the way they grew up. And then the idea of a different kind of way of thinking and experiencing the world is just completely foreign to them. So, and then, people kind of create their lives in a way that is very, very unfree, very trapped. They have a job that they feel stuck in and they can't get out, and it's a hourly wage job, and it's like it's just kind of an endless cycle where it's like, I just need a couple more dollars an hour and then it'll be better, and then they get that and then they spend all that, and then it's just kind of like a cycle of trying to get out of debt and then trying to stay out of debt, and that's not really living free. So and then you look at all the different ways that people try to kind of trap you into different things, like buying a house. I mean, when you own a house, as I found out, it's not very freeing. I mean, there's a lot of things that you're kind of stuck with. My example is I bought some rental properties back in 2005 to 2006, and then I got a divorce, and it turns out that if you have two people on a loan, you cannot take one person off the loan. So then you end up with a situation where you have people that aren't married owning a house together. And that's not an ideal situation, and you're trapped, because if you can't, like in that situation, we couldn't sell the houses because they were underwater. The the amount that we owed was much more than what the house was worth. So that's kind of a trap. That's one of those traps that is really important to avoid. So anyway, the whole point of it is that while the article has some great points, and I agree with a lot of it, and I think it's something that is worth discussing. There's also some things that I wouldn't say that most people are free in a lot of ways. So having said that, I'm going to wrap it up today. It's a quick one. I will have some guests coming up. I'll be traveling a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit sparse, but keep in touch. And if you want to meet up in Panama in the winter, let me know. I would love to meet up with anyone that's going down there, and I am working on my Espanol, estudiando mi Espanol, and it's coming along very slowly. I'm learning more vocabulary, and the conversation pieces or the conversation part of it is not there yet. I'm definitely, when I hear Spanish, I can hear words, but I can't hear the whole meaning of it. So that hopefully will be coming around in the next couple months and getting better, and we'll see how that goes in Colombia, and then that'll be the training grounds, and then Panama after that. So anyway, I hope your week is going great. Go out there and build some freedom, and we'll talk to you soon. Another song of freedom, 'cause all I ever redemption songs, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy. None of them can stop your time.